The council chamber was massive. Taiyang had never seen a room this big before. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he could barely see it. Around the circular table sat representatives from 12 different alien species. Each one looked more impressive than the last. To his left sat a Krathian general named Vextar. The creature was 3 meters tall with scales like dark metal. His arms were thick as tree trunks. When he moved, the floor seemed to shake. To his right perched Captain Lyrae, a bird-like being with silver feathers and eyes that never blinked. Her people were famous for their perfect aim and lightning-fast reflexes. Taiyang stood behind Commander Hyejin, his superior officer, and the only other human in the room. He wore his standard military uniform, clean and pressed, but next to these alien warriors he looked tiny. At 25 years old and average height for a human, he knew what they all thought when they looked at him. Weak, fragile, useless. Admiral Zorvok called the meeting to order. The ancient Draenith commander had lived for 300 years and fought in countless wars. His voice was cold and formal. "The Vorath Empire has attacked our outer colonies," Zorvok said. 3 fleets destroyed in 2 weeks. We must respond with force. Each member species will send their finest warrior to join our defense force. One by one, the representatives presented their champions. The Krathians brought Vextar himself, a warrior who had never lost a battle. The Selthians sent their best pilot. The Mordax showed holographic images of their champion crushing steel with bare hands. Each presentation brought nods of approval from the council. Then it was humanity's turn. Commander Hyejin stepped forward. "Humanity offers Corporal Taiyang," she said simply. Silence filled the chamber. Then someone laughed. Taiyang couldn't tell who. General Vextar looked at him with something like pity in his ancient eyes. "This is your warrior?" Vextar asked. "He looks like a child." "No offense intended, but humans should remain in support roles. Leave the fighting to those built for it." Taiyang said nothing. He had learned long ago that words meant nothing to people who had already made up their minds. Instead, he watched and listened. He noticed how Vextar favored his left side slightly. Old injury, probably. Captain Lyrae's feathers ruffled when she was annoyed. The Mordax representative drummed his fingers when impatient. These details might matter later. Admiral Zorvok raised a hand for silence. "Protocol requires all member species to contribute. The human may join the force. I am certain we can find suitable duties for him." The meeting ended. As they left, Captain Lyrae approached Taiyang. She looked down at him with her unblinking eyes. "Stay out of my squadron's way during combat," she said. Her voice was not cruel, just matter of fact. "I cannot protect you and complete my mission. I hope you understand." "I understand," Taiyang replied calmly. The transport ship to the front lines was crowded with soldiers. The different species naturally separated into groups. The humans, just 5 of them total, sat in a corner near the cargo bay. Lieutenant Minho, Taiyang's closest friend, tried to lighten the mood. "Well, that went great," Minho said with a forced smile. "They absolutely love us." I could feel the respect in the room. Dr. Jiwoo, the team's scientist and engineer, didn't look up from her datapad. She was reviewing information about the Vorath Empire. "They see us as weak because we are weak," she said. "Compared to them, we are. Smaller, slower, more fragile. But strength isn't everything in war." "What have you learned about the Vorath?" Taiyang asked. Jiwoo pulled up tactical displays. "They rely on overwhelming force. Direct assaults. They expect enemies to meet them head-on. Their armor is thick, their weapons powerful. But their tactics are predictable. They've won every battle the same way for centuries." "Predictable is good," Taiyang said quietly. "Predictable means you can plan for it." The ship arrived at planet Helion 4 3 days later. The mining colony was under attack. Vorath forces had landed and were pushing toward the main settlement. Admiral Zorvok divided the coalition forces into sectors. The main assault force led by Vextar would attack the Vorath head-on. Supporting squadrons would guard the flanks. Then Zorvok pointed to a canyon on the tactical map. It was a narrow pass leading to the colony's backup power station. "Corporal Taiyang, you will hold this position with a small support team," the admiral said. "It is unlikely the enemy will attack there, but we must cover all approaches." Commander Hyejin started to protest, but Taiyang touched her arm gently. He understood what this really was. They were sending him somewhere he wouldn't get in the way. Somewhere he would probably die quietly if the Vorath did attack. Out of sight, out of mind. "I accept the assignment," Taiyang said. His team consisted of 6 soldiers from minor species, the ones nobody else wanted either. They gathered their equipment and headed to the canyon. When they arrived, Taiyang immediately began studying the terrain. The canyon walls were steep and rocky, natural choke points everywhere, limited sight lines, poor footing in several areas. "Sir, what are we doing?" asked one of his team members, a young Pelion with green skin and nervous eyes. "Preparing," Taiyang replied. He started marking positions on his datapad. "We have 6 hours before the Vorath arrive. That is enough time. How do you know they are coming here?" another soldier asked. Taiyang pointed at the map. "The power station is a priority target. Destroying it would cripple the colony's defenses. Zorvok thinks it is unlikely because the main route is easier. But the Vorath are thorough. They will send a force here, probably at the same time as the main assault. It is what I would do." He set the team to work. They placed proximity sensors along the approach. They rigged demolition charges at key points on the canyon walls. They created false positions using equipment and decoys. They prepared fallback positions with overlapping fields of fire. Every detail mattered. Minho helped dig a concealed fighting position. "Do you really think we can stop them?" he asked quietly. "We do not need to stop them," Taiyang said. "We just need to slow them down long enough." "Long enough for what?" "For them to make mistakes." 6 hours later, the sensors lit up. Vorath forces were coming, exactly as Taiyang predicted. 30 soldiers in powered armor, supported by 2 war machines, against 7 defenders with basic equipment. Back at Coalition Command, someone noticed the sensor alerts from Taiyang's position. "The canyon sector is under attack," an officer reported. Admiral Zorvok barely looked up from the main tactical display. Noted in the log, "We will retrieve their remains after the battle." But Dr. Jiwoo, monitoring from the command ship, pulled up Taiyang's helmet camera feed. She watched as the Vorath forces entered the canyon. She watched as Taiyang gave quiet orders to his team. She watched as the first Vorath soldier stepped on a pressure sensor. The canyon wall exploded. Rocks rained down on the Vorath formation. 3 soldiers went down immediately. The others scattered, seeking cover. But there was no safe cover. Every position had been calculated, predicted, prepared for. The Vorath commander roared orders. His forces regrouped and pushed forward. They were still 30 against 7. They were still stronger, better armed, better armored, but Taiyang was not fighting a fair fight. He had never planned to. Through her screen, Dr. Jiwoo saw Taiyang smile. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had prepared for this exact moment, someone who had been underestimated his entire life and learned to use it. The battle for Helion IV had begun, and humanity was about to teach the galaxy a very important lesson. The first explosion caught the Vorath completely by surprise. One moment they were marching confidently through the canyon. The next the walls were falling on them. Rocks the size of vehicles crashed down, crushing armor and breaking weapons. Taiyang watched from his concealed position. He counted the enemies, 27 left plus the 2 war machines. The machines were the real problem. Each one had thick armor and heavy weapons. They could flatten his entire team in minutes if he let them. He was not going to let them. "Team 1, fall back to position 2, he said quietly into his comm. "Team 2, activate decoys now." The decoys were simple but effective. Thermal signatures that looked like soldiers. Movement sensors triggering recorded sounds. The Vorath saw targets and opened fire. Dozens of energy blasts hit empty positions while Taiyang's real team moved silently to new locations. The Vorath commander was furious. Taiyang could hear him shouting orders over the enemy communications channel. Dr. Jiwoo had given him access to their frequencies, another advantage the enemy did not know he had. "Push forward," the commander roared. "They are cowards hiding in the rocks. Crush them!" The Vorath advanced. Taiyang waited. Patience was a weapon too. He let them come deeper into the canyon, farther from their support, closer to his prepared positions. One of the war machines moved past a narrow section of the canyon floor. Taiyang pressed a trigger. The ground exploded beneath it. Not enough to destroy the machine, but enough to damage its leg systems. It stumbled and fell, blocking the path behind it. Now the Vorath force was split. Half were trapped behind the fallen machine. The others were ahead, isolated. "Focus fire on the forward group," Taiyang ordered. Aimed shots. "Make every bullet count," his team opened fire. They did not try to pierce the Vorath armor directly. Instead, they targeted joints, sensors, weapon systems. The weak points. 7 soldiers with basic rifles would never win a straight fight. But this was not a straight fight. The Vorath returned fire, but they could not see their targets clearly. Taiyang had positioned his team in shadows behind cover, at angles that made them nearly invisible. Every time the Vorath thought they had located someone, that position would go silent and shots would come from somewhere else. Minutes felt like hours. The battle was chaos and noise and smoke. But through it all, Taiyang stayed calm. He watched everything. He adjusted his plans constantly. When the Vorath adapted to one tactic, he switched to another. Back at Coalition Command, more people were watching now. Word had spread that the canyon position was still fighting. Admiral Zorvok had expected the human to be dead within 10 minutes. It had been 30 minutes now, and Taiyang's team was still holding. "How is this possible?" one officer asked. Dr. Jiwoo smiled slightly. "He is not fighting their fight. He is making them fight his." General Vextar pushed through the crowd to see the display. He watched the tactical feat in silence. His expression was difficult to read, but something was changing in his eyes. Respect, perhaps, or maybe just curiosity. In the canyon, the Vorath commander made a decision. He ordered the second war machine to climb over the fallen one and advance at full speed. If he could not root out these defenders with careful tactics, he would simply crush them with overwhelming force. The war machine charged forward, its weapons firing in all directions. It did not need to aim. It just needed to destroy everything. Taiyang had prepared for this too. "Now," he said calmly. The canyon walls exploded again, but this time it was different. The charges were positioned to create a landslide, sending tons of rock and dirt sliding down in a controlled avalanche. The war machine disappeared beneath the debris. Its weapons went silent. The Vorath commander stared at where his machine had been. His force was now cut in half, both war machines disabled, and they had not even seen most of their enemies. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. "Who are these soldiers?" he muttered. Taiyang's voice came over the comm channel. He had hacked into their frequency. "We are humans, and we are still here." The psychological impact was immediate. The Vorath had been told humans were weak, easy targets, but this human was beating them. The soldiers began to hesitate, to question their orders, to fear the shadows. The commander tried to rally his troops, but it was too late. Morale was broken. When Taiyang's team launched their next attack, 3 Vorath soldiers simply retreated, then 5 more. Then the rest began to fall back. The Vorath commander refused to retreat. He charged forward alone, determined to find and kill the human who had humiliated him. He made it 20 meters before stepping on a pressure mine. The explosion threw him backwards, his armor cracked and smoking. Taiyang approached carefully, his weapon ready. The commander was still alive, but badly wounded. He looked up at the human standing over him, so small, so fragile, yet somehow victorious. "How?" the commander asked weakly. "You are nothing. We are superior." Taiyang looked at him without anger or pride. "Superior at what? Strength?" "Maybe. But war is not about strength. It is about survival, and humans are very good at surviving." He signaled for medical assistance for the wounded Vorath, then moved to check on his team. They had minor injuries, but everyone was alive. Against 30 Vorath soldiers and 2 war machines, 7 defenders had won. At Coalition Command, silence filled the room. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the entire command center was applauding. Even Admiral Zorvok looked impressed, though he tried to hide it. General Vextar made a decision. He opened a comm channel to his forces on the main battlefield. "This is General Vextar. I am redirecting my personal unit to support the canyon sector. Corporal Taiyang has shown us how to fight this enemy. It is time we learned from him." Zorvok stood quickly. "General, that is not the battle plan. Your forces are needed on the main front." Vextar turned to face the Admiral. When he spoke, his voice was firm but respectful. "With respect, Admiral, the main front is failing. We have been fighting the same way for 2 hours and losing ground. The human has defeated a superior force in 30 minutes. Perhaps it is time to try his way." Zorvok wanted to argue, but he could not. The tactical displays proved Vextar right. The main assault was stalled. The Vorath were pushing them back, but at the canyon, Taiyang had not only held his position but had won decisively. "Very well," Zorvok said stiffly. "Proceed, General." 20 minutes later, Krathian forces arrived at the canyon. Taeyang watched the massive warriors approach. He had expected them to dismiss him again. Instead, Vexitar walked directly to him and placed a huge hand on his shoulder. "I judged you wrongly, human," the general said. "I saw your size and assumed weakness. That was my error. You fight with your mind, and that makes you dangerous. Show me your tactics. Teach me how you won here." Taeyang was surprised, but he did not waste time. He pulled up his tactical maps and began explaining how he used terrain, how he predicted enemy movements, how he turned their strengths into weaknesses. Vexitar listened carefully. Then he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "This is warfare as it should be. Not just muscle, not just technology, but thought and preparation. My ancestors would approve." Together they planned a joint assault on the main Vorath force. Taeyang would provide strategy and coordination. Vexitar would provide the raw power needed to execute those plans. The combination was devastating. By nightfall, the battle for Helion IV was over. The Vorath had retreated off-planet, their invasion broken. The colony was saved, and for the first time in Coalition history, a human had led soldiers to victory. In the celebration that followed, Captain Lyrae approached Taeyang. The bird-like warrior looked at him with new eyes. "I told you to stay out of my way," she said. Then she extended her wing in a gesture of respect. "I was wrong. Your way is effective. Perhaps it is time my squadron learned some new tactics." News of the victory spread quickly across Coalition space. Humanity was no longer a joke. They were a question mark. What else could these small, fragile beings do? Taeyang stood alone on a hill overlooking the battlefield. Minho found him there watching the sunset. "You did it," Minho said. "You proved them all wrong." Taeyang shook his head slightly. "I did not prove anything. I just survived. That is what humans do." But across the galaxy, in the cold halls of the Vorath Empire, War Prince Zalruk was receiving reports of the defeat. He read about the human who had stopped his forces. A human named Taeyang Zalruk crushed the datapad in his hand. Then he smiled. It was not a kind smile. "A worthy opponent at last," he said. "Send Shadow Commander Threx. I want to know everything about this human, everything." The hunt had begun. Fame was strange. Taeyang did not like it. Everywhere he went, people stared. Soldiers wanted to talk to him. Journalists wanted interviews. His face was on every news channel in Coalition space. The hero of Helion IV, they called him. He did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. Commander Hijin found him in the training room at midnight. He was running combat simulations alone, practicing scenarios, preparing for threats that might never come. "You should rest," she said. "The medical staff says you have not slept in 2 days." "I will rest when the war is over," Taeyang replied. He reset the simulation and started again. Hijin watched him for a moment. She understood. The attention made him a target. Every Vorath soldier now knew his name. Every commander would want to be the one who killed the human who shamed their empire. Dr. Jiwoo intercepted some enemy communications. Hijin said quietly, "They mention you specifically." "They are coming for you, Taeyang." "Good," he said without looking away from the simulation. "Let them come. Better me than soldiers who are not ready." The first assassination attempt came 3 days later. Taeyang was in his quarters on the Coalition base. The base was supposed to be secure. It was not. He woke at 300 hours to a sound that should not exist, a whisper of displaced air, a shadow that moved wrong. Years of training and paranoia saved his life. He rolled off his bed just as an energy blade sliced through his pillow. The assassin was Vorath, wearing stealth armor that bent light. Nearly invisible, nearly silent, but not perfect. Taeyang could see the slight distortion when it moved. That was enough. He grabbed the flashbang from his bedside drawer. Yes, he kept weapons next to his bed. Always prepared. He threw it. The bright light and loud noise disrupted the stealth technology. For a moment he could see his attacker clearly. Taeyang did not try to fight hand-to-hand. He was not foolish. The assassin was bigger, stronger, better armed. Instead he ran. Through the door, into the corridor, toward the barracks where other soldiers slept. The assassin followed, but the corridor was trapped. Not officially. Taeyang had made his own modifications to the base security systems. Pressure sensors linked to alarms, hidden cameras, automated defenses that he had programmed himself. The assassin chased him into a junction. Taeyang triggered the emergency bulkheads. Heavy doors slammed shut, trapping the attacker in a small section. Then he activated the fire suppression system, flooding the area with foam. The assassin was pinned, helpless, when security forces arrived. Minho found Taeyang sitting in the hallway, breathing hard, covered in foam. "Are you okay?" Minho asked. "I am alive. That is okay enough." The second attempt came a week later. A bomb in his transport vehicle. Taeyang found it during his standard pre-flight inspection. He always checked everything 3 times. Paranoia was not a weakness. It was survival. The third attempt was more creative. Poisoned food in the officer's dining hall, specifically targeted to human biology. Dr. Jiwoo's scanner detected it just before Taeyang took a bite. "They are getting desperate," Jiwoo said. "That is good and bad. Good because it means you are hurting them. Bad because desperate people take bigger risks." Admiral Zorvok called a security meeting. He looked at Taeyang with something like concern. "Perhaps we should move you to a more secure location," the Admiral suggested. "You have become too valuable to lose?" "No," Taeyang said. "If I hide, they will target other humans, other soldiers. I am already painted. Let me draw their fire." Vextar grunted approval. "Spoken like a true warrior. But you should not face this alone. I will assign guards." "With respect, General, guards can be killed or bribed. I trust my preparations more than guards." 2 weeks after Helion 4, Coalition intelligence reported unusual activity. A Vorath research station on a remote moon had suddenly gone dark. Sensor readings suggested weapons and equipment inside. "It could be a weapons cache," an intelligence officer said. "If we capture it, we might learn their battle plans." Taeyang studied the report. Something felt wrong. The timing was too convenient. The location too isolated. The intelligence too good. "It is a trap," he said. Admiral Zorvok frowned. "How can you be certain?" "Because it is what I would do. They know we value intelligence gathering. They know we want to stop their plans. This is bait." "Then we ignore it," Zorvok said. "No," Taeyang said. "We spring the trap, but on our terms." He volunteered to lead the investigation team. Commander Hyejin protested strongly, but Taeyang was firm. "They set this trap for me specifically. Anyone else who goes will walk in blind. I know it is a trap. That gives me an advantage." The research station on Kalis Moon looked abandoned. Dark windows, silent corridors, too quiet. Taeyang led a small team through the entrance, but he was already planning 3 different escape routes. Dr. Jiwoo monitored from orbit, watching through his helmet camera. "The layout makes no sense," she said. "Those corridors lead nowhere. Those rooms are empty. This whole place is designed to be a maze." "A maze with us as the rats," Taeyang agreed. "Stay alert, team. Expect automated defenses." He was right. The first turret activated after they went 10 meters inside. But Taeyang had seen the power cable in the wall. He shot it before the turret could fire. The system went dark. They moved deeper. Every room had dangers, gas traps, explosive panels, automated sentries, but Taeyang spotted them all. He had studied Vorath technology. He knew their patterns. He knew how they thought. In the central chamber, a figure waited, tall and wearing black armor that seemed to absorb light. Shadow Commander Threx, the Vorath's most skilled assassin. "Human," Threx said. His voice was like gravel. "War Prince Zalrock wants you dead. I am here to fulfill that wish." Taeyang signaled his team to fall back. This fight was meant for him. He studied Threx carefully. The assassin was confident, patient, skilled. A worthy opponent. "You went to a lot of trouble to set up this meeting," Taeyang said calmly. "You could have just sent an invitation," Threx laughed. "I wanted to see the human who defeated our forces. I wanted to understand how such a weak creature accomplished such things. And now that you see me, still think I am weak? I think you are lucky." "Luck runs out," Threx attacked. He was fast. Impossibly fast. His blade cut through the air where Taeyang had been standing. But Taeyang was not there anymore. He had moved before Threx finished speaking. Always expecting the worst. Always prepared. The fight moved through the station. Taeyang did not try to match Threx's speed or strength. Instead, he used the environment. He led the assassin through trapped corridors. He triggered defense systems that targeted both of them, then dodged while Threx had to block. It was not honorable. It was not fair. It was survival. In a storage bay, Taeyang found what he needed. Fuel cells for the station's power systems. He shot several, causing leaks. The air filled with flammable gas. Threx realized what was happening. You would destroy yourself to defeat me? If necessary, Taeyang replied. He backed toward an emergency airlock, his weapon pointed at the fuel cells. But I do not think it will be necessary. You are not suicidal. You are a professional. Threx stopped advancing. The standoff lasted for long seconds. Then the assassin stepped back. You are not what I expected, human. You fight without honor. Honor is a luxury. I am just trying to survive. Threx laughed again, but this time it sounded different, almost respectful. War Prince Zalrock will want to meet you himself. You have earned that honor at least. The assassin activated a personal teleporter and vanished. Taeyang stood alone in the storage bay, breathing hard. His hands were shaking slightly. Adrenaline wearing off. His team rushed in, relieved to find him alive. We need to leave, Minho said. This whole place could be rigged to explode. But Taeyang was staring at something on the wall. A message written in simple Coalition standard language. It had not been there before. Threx must have left it. The War Prince comes. The Nexus Gate. Be ready, human. Back on the Coalition ship, Taeyang reported everything to Admiral Zorvok. The Admiral looked troubled. The Nexus Gate is our most important strategic position. If Zalrock attacks there personally, it means they are planning something big. Vextar stood. Then we must prepare, and this time the humans' tactics should be part of our plan from the start. For the first time, Admiral Zorvok did not argue. He looked at Taeyang with new eyes. Not dismissive anymore, not underestimating. Very well. Corporal Taeyang, you will have a position in the Battle Planning Council. Show us how to stop Zalrock. Taeyang nodded. The real battle was coming. Everything until now had been preparation. War Prince Zalrock was the Vorath Empire's greatest warrior. He had never lost. He had never retreated. He was coming specifically to kill the human who had challenged his empire. Taeyang went to his quarters and began planning. He would need every trick, every tactic, every advantage he could create, because when Zalrock came, there would be no second chances. The hunter had become the hunted, but Taeyang was ready to show that sometimes the hunted could bite back. The Nexus Gate hung in space like a jewel. It was not a gate in the traditional sense. It was a wormhole, natural and stable, connecting two parts of the galaxy. Control the gate, control half the galaxy's trade routes and military movements. Lose the gate, lose the war. Both sides knew this. The Coalition had assembled its largest fleet. Hundreds of warships surrounded the gate. Thousands of fighters on standby. Massive defensive stations bristling with weapons. It was an impressive sight. Taeyang stood in the war room aboard the Eternal Vigilance, the Coalition flagship. Around him were the greatest military minds of 12 species. Admiral Zorvok stood at the center, pointing to a holographic display of the battlefield. We will meet their fleet head-on, Zorvok explained. Our forces outnumber theirs. Our position is defensive. We hold until they break. It was a solid plan. Traditional. By the book. And it would probably fail. Taeyang studied the tactical display. He saw the problem immediately. The Vorath were not coming to trade blows. They were coming to conquer. War Prince Zalrock did not accept stalemates. With respect, Admiral, Taeyang said quietly. May I suggest an adjustment? Zorvok turned. His expression was not hostile anymore, but he was clearly uncertain about taking advice from someone so young, so inexperienced by traditional standards. Speak, Corporal. Taeyang stepped forward and manipulated the hologram. He marked several positions on the display, explaining how to cut off enemy supply lines. Several officers looked skeptical. Captain Lyrie studied the plan carefully. It is a gamble, she said. If the supply raids fail, we will have weakened our main defense. General Vextar rumbled his response. He supported the plan, noting that previous gambles by the human had succeeded. Admiral Zorvok was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly, approving a modified version of the strategy. It was more responsibility than Taeyang had ever had. Thousands of lives depending on his decisions, but he pushed the fear down. Fear was just data. Use it, do not let it use you. The Vorath fleet arrived 6 hours later. It was massive. Ship after ship emerging from hyperspace. War machines and carriers and battle cruisers. And at the center, the flagship of War Prince Zalrock, the Crimson Fang, 3 times larger than any Coalition vessel. Taeyang watched the sensors. He was looking for patterns. The Vorath formation was aggressive, pressing forward immediately. No caution, no hesitation. Exactly as he predicted. Taeyang ordered all units to execute the raid plan. His voice was calm despite his racing heart. Captain Lyray's squadrons broke from the main fleet and accelerated toward the Vorath rear positions. They moved fast and coordinated. Within minutes, 3 Vorath supply ships were destroyed. Ammunition convoys scattered. Support vessels retreated. On the main battle line, the fleets clashed. Energy weapons lit up space. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Ships on both sides took damage. But the coalition held their ground. Taeyang coordinated everything. He directed reinforcements to weak points. He identified Vorath attack patterns and countered them. He was not the strongest or the fastest, but he could see the whole battlefield while others saw only their small part of it. Hours passed. The battle raged on. The Vorath were fierce, but without their supply lines they were running low on ammunition and fuel. Their attacks became less coordinated. Desperation replaced discipline. Then everything changed. War Prince Zalrock had been watching from his flagship, studying the battle. He realized the coalition strategy. He understood that a human had designed it. And he made a decision that shocked everyone. He launched boarding pods, not at coalition warships, at the Eternal Vigilance itself. Zalrock was coming for the command ship. Coming for Taeyang personally. A sensor officer shouted warnings. Boarding pods were incoming. Multiple breaches on several decks. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Marines rushed to defensive positions. But everyone knew that if Zalrock reached the command deck, no amount of Marines would stop him. Commander Hyejin grabbed Taeyang's arm, urging him to evacuate and get to an escape pod. No. If I run, he will hunt me. If he hunts me, he will kill everyone in his way. Better he finds me quickly. Hyejin reminded him that he could not fight Zalrock. The War Prince was 3 meters tall with enhanced genetics and powered armor. He was built for killing, I know. That is why I have prepared. Taeyang had studied the ship's layout for weeks. He knew every corridor, every access panel, every system. He had prepared contingencies. Just in case, because he always prepared for the worst. The sound of fighting grew closer. Taeyang could hear weapons fire, screaming, the heavy footsteps of powered armor. Zalrock was cutting through the defenders like they were nothing. The command deck doors exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris walked War Prince Zalrock. He was even more impressive in person, covered in scars and blood that was not his own. His armor glowed with energy shields. His weapons hummed with power. He looked directly at Taeyang. His eyes were cold and focused. Zalrock spoke. His voice was deep and resonant. He offered Taeyang a quick and honorable death in single combat. Taeyang looked at the towering alien. He looked at the weapons, the armor, the obvious physical superiority. Then he spoke calmly. Warriors die. Soldiers survive. I choose survival. He pressed a button on his datapad. The command deck's emergency systems activated. Bulkheads sealed sections of the room. Atmosphere vented in controlled bursts, creating wind and chaos. Lights flickered to emergency red. The gravity in half the room shut off. Zalrock stumbled as the gravity changed. His heavy armor became a disadvantage in 0G. Taeyang pushed off a console, moving through the zero-gravity section with practiced ease. He had trained for this. The War Prince roared and fired his weapons, but Taeyang was already moving. He used the ship's structure as cover and weapons. He triggered more emergency systems, fire suppression foam, electrical disruptions. Anything to slow down his opponent. It was not a fight. It was a chase. Taeyang led Zalrock through the damaged ship, through sections he had prepared, through traps and hazards. He could not overpower the War Prince, but he could frustrate him, slow him, injure him piece by piece. They fought through corridors filled with debris, through the engine room where Taeyang used the machinery as weapons, through cargo bays where explosive containers became improvised bombs. Zalrock was bleeding now, small wounds, but they were adding up. His armor was damaged, his movement slightly slower. For the first time in his life, he was being beaten by someone weaker than him. Zalrock shouted that Taeyang fought without honor. I fight to win, Taeyang replied. He was exhausted, running on adrenaline and determination, but he could not stop. Not until this was over. They reached the engine room's central chamber. Massive power cores pulsed with energy. Taeyang had led Zalrock here deliberately. This was his final trap. He showed the War Prince the charges he had placed hours ago. Enough explosives to damage the power cores. Not enough to destroy the ship, but enough to create a massive energy discharge that would kill anyone in the room. We can both die here, Taeyang said. Or you can retreat. Your choice. Zalrock stared at him. Then slowly the War Prince began to laugh. It was a genuine laugh, not mocking or cruel. Respectful. You would die to stop me? If necessary. Zalrock lowered his weapons. He acknowledged that true strength was not in the body but in the will. Taeyang had will like steel. Outside, the battle was turning. Without Zalrock's leadership, the Vorath fleet was losing coordination. Coalition forces pressed their advantage. The enemy began to retreat. Zalrock received the reports through his armor's communication systems. His fleet was breaking. The battle was lost. He looked at Taeyang one final time and spoke of future meetings not as enemies. Taeyang had earned something rare, the respect of the Vorath. And respect from the Vorath meant more than most knew. The War Prince activated his personal teleporter and vanished. Taeyang collapsed against the wall, shaking. He had survived. Against all odds, he had survived. Commander Hyejin found him there minutes later. She pulled him to his feet and hugged him tightly. You did it, she whispered. You saved us all. But Taeyang did not feel like a hero. He felt empty, tired. The battle was won, but at what cost? How many had died today? How many more would die tomorrow? The Nexus Gate was saved. The Coalition had won a great victory. Across the galaxy, people celebrated. Humanity's name was spoken with awe and respect. But in the quiet moments after battle, Taeyang stood alone on an observation deck, looking at the stars. Minho found him there. They are calling you the hero of the Nexus Gate, Minho said softly. I am not a hero. I am just someone who refused to die. Maybe that is what heroes are. People who survive when they should not. Before Taeyang could respond, an alert came through. Urgent message from Coalition Intelligence. The Vorath Empire was sending a diplomatic transmission. They wanted to negotiate. For the first time in centuries, the Vorath were willing to talk peace, and they had one specific request. They wanted Corporal Taeyang at the negotiation table. The galaxy was changing, and the small, fragile human who everyone had underestimated was now at the center of it all. Arbitration Station Theta was neutral ground. It floated in empty space between Coalition and Vorath territories. Ancient peacekeeping AI monitored everything. No weapons were allowed except what the guards carried. No treachery was supposed to be possible. Taeyang did not believe in supposed safety. He studied the station's layout during the entire journey. He noted escape routes. He memorized security patterns. He identified weaknesses, just in case. Commander Hyejin sat across from him in the transport shuttle. She watched him work with a mixture of concern and understanding. You need to rest, she said. The negotiations will require a clear mind. My mind is clear. I am just being prepared. You have been preparing your whole life. Sometimes you need to just trust that you are ready. Taeyang looked at her. She had been with him from the beginning. She had believed in him when no one else did. She deserved honesty. I do not know how to do this, he admitted. Fighting is simple. You survive or you do not. But peace? Diplomacy? Words instead of actions? I am not trained for this, Hyejin smiled. You will do what you always do. You will observe. You will think. You will find the solution that no one else sees. The Coalition delegation arrived at the station first. Admiral Zorvok led them, along with General Vextar and Captain Lyrae. They wore ceremonial uniforms instead of battle armor. It felt wrong to Taeyang. Too exposed. Too vulnerable. The Vorath delegation arrived an hour later. War Prince Zalrock walked through the airlock with Shadow Commander Threx at his side. Despite the peace talks, they looked ready for war. Scars visible, eyes sharp, movements controlled. Zalrock and Taeyang locked eyes across the reception chamber. Neither looked away. The tension was thick enough to cut. Then Zalrock did something unexpected. He smiled, a genuine smile of recognition. Human, Zalrock said as he approached. I came here to kill you. Instead, you taught me something I thought I already knew, the meaning of strength. The room fell silent. Every Coalition representative watched nervously. But Zalrock extended his massive hand in what was clearly meant to be a gesture of respect. Taeyang studied the hand. Then he shook it. The War Prince's grip could have crushed his bones, but it was carefully controlled. Respectful. We have much to discuss, Taeyang said simply. The negotiations began in the main conference chamber. Representatives from both sides presented their terms. Territory disputes, resource allocation, military limitations. The usual topics after any war, but Taeyang noticed something. Zalrock kept looking at him during the discussions. Not with hostility, with curiosity, with questions he wanted to ask but could not in this formal setting. During a recess, Zalrock approached Taeyang privately. Admiral Zorvok started to object, but Commander Heejin held up a hand. If anyone could handle this, it was Taeyang. They walked to an observation window overlooking empty space. For a long moment, neither spoke. "My empire is dying," Zalrock said finally. His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. "Our genetic enhancements are failing. We bred ourselves for war, but we forgot how to adapt, how to change. We conquer because we do not know what else to do." Taeyang listened. This was not what he expected. War Prince Zalrock, the greatest warrior in the galaxy, was admitting weakness. "The invasion was meant to be our last great victory," Zalrock continued. "One final conquest to prove we were still strong. But you stopped us, a human, someone we considered beneath notice. And now?" Taeyang asked. "Now I understand. Strength without the ability to change is just waiting to die. Your people learned this, did you not? You survived on your planet because you adapted. You survived in space because you adapted. You beat us because you adapted." Taeyang thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of survival against impossible odds. Ice ages, diseases, wars, disasters, always adapting, always changing, always refusing to die. "Adaptation is not weakness," Taeyang said. "It is the strongest thing a species can do. To admit you were wrong, to change your path. That takes more courage than any battle." Zalrock looked at him with new understanding. "This is why I wanted you here. The Coalition offers treaties and terms, but you offer something more valuable: perspective." They returned to the negotiations. The atmosphere had changed. Zalrock was different, more open, more willing to compromise. But not everyone wanted peace. The alarms came without warning. Explosions rocked the station. Attackers in unmarked armor flooded the corridors. The ancient AI's voice announced a security breach. A faction of Vorath commanders who refused to accept peace had launched an attack. They intended to kill both delegations and restart the war. Taeyang moved instantly. His preparation paid off. He knew exactly where to go. "Follow me," he shouted to both delegations. "I know a secure route." Coalition and Vorath representatives ran together through the station. Former enemies protecting each other. General Vextar fought beside Threx. Captain Lyrae coordinated with Vorath soldiers. Survival created strange alliances. Taeyang led them through maintenance tunnels he had memorized. He anticipated ambushes. He found weapons stored in security lockers. He created defensive positions when they needed to rest. Zalrock fought at Taeyang's side. Where Taeyang provided strategy and precision, Zalrock provided raw power. The combination was devastating. They moved like they had fought together for years. Shadow Commander Threx appeared, leading the rebel Vorath forces. But he was not there to kill Taeyang anymore. He was there to stop Zalrock from what he called betrayal. "You dishonor our people," Threx said to Zalrock. "Peace with the weak makes us weak." Zalrock faced his former subordinate. "You are wrong. Peace with those different from us makes us stronger. That is what the human taught me." The fight between Zalrock and Threx was brutal. Two Vorath warriors at their peak. But Zalrock fought with new purpose. He was not just fighting for victory. He was fighting for the future of his species. Threx fell, not dead, but defeated, broken. The rebel forces surrendered when they saw their leader beaten. Coalition security arrived and secured the station. The immediate danger had passed, but something more important had happened. Coalition and Vorath had fought together, bled together, survived together. The negotiations resumed the next day, but they were different now, genuine. Based on trust that had been tested in combat, Admiral Zorvok proposed a comprehensive peace treaty. Mutual defense, technology exchange, cultural programs, the beginning of real cooperation. Zalrock accepted everything. Then he did something unprecedented. He performed a Vorath ceremony of respect, kneeling before the coalition representatives, acknowledging them as equals. He looked directly at Taeyang as he spoke. "You showed us that weakness is not in the body but in the mind that refuses to grow. The Vorath will learn from humanity, and perhaps we will teach you something in return." The treaty was signed. After centuries of conflict, there would be peace. 6 months later, Taeyang returned to Earth for the first time in years. He walked through the streets of Seoul. People recognized him. The hero of Helion IV, the victor of the Nexus Gate, the human who changed the galaxy. But he did not feel changed. He felt like the same person who had left, just more tired. Dr. Jiwoo found him on a quiet hillside outside the city. She sat beside him without speaking for a while. "What will you do now?" she asked finally. Taeyang looked at the sky. Once it had been a place of distant battles. Now it was a frontier of possibilities. "The coalition is forming a new academy," he said. "They want to teach combined tactics from all species. They asked me to help. Will you accept?" He thought about it. Teaching. Passing on what he had learned. Helping the next generation understand that strength came in many forms. "Yes, I think I will." Jiwoo smiled. "Good. The galaxy needs more people who understand that being underestimated can be an advantage." A message came through on his communicator. It was from General Vextar. The Krathian wanted to coordinate on the Academy's combat training programs. Another message from Captain Lyrae about flight tactics. Even one from Zalrock, asking for advice on reforming Vorith military doctrine. The small, weak human had become a bridge between species, a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Taeyang stood and looked at the sunset. On Earth, sunsets were beautiful. Simple. A reminder that every day ended, but another would begin. He thought about everything that had happened. The battles, the fear, the constant preparation for the worst. All of it had led here to peace, to understanding. "They believed I was weak," he said quietly. "Because I was small. Because I was human. Because I did not fit their idea of what a warrior should be." Jiwoo stood beside him. "And you proved them wrong." Taeyang shook his head slightly. "No, I proved that their idea of strength was wrong. Physical power, advanced technology, superior genetics. None of that matters if you cannot adapt. If you cannot think, if you cannot survive." He smiled for the first time in months. A genuine smile, not the smile of a soldier preparing for battle. The smile of someone who had finally found peace. Humanity survived ice ages and diseases and wars. We survived because we were too stubborn to die, too creative to give up, too adaptable to stay the same. That is our strength. That is what I showed them, Jiwoo nodded. And now the galaxy knows. You do not mess with species that had to claw their way to the top of their own planet. They stood together watching the sunset. Two humans who had changed the galaxy, not through conquest or domination,